Bruntsy. So back to recruiting. Nebraska feels obviously pretty good about Odom. They know, we know the work's not done yet. But if we talk about past tense, pretty good replacement for CJ. Different kind of replacement for CJ. How'd you look at Odom saying yes?
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty good pivot. I think what you have with Odom is, a rangy corner, and if you watch him play, and you watch the film a little bit, but you also talk to some guys who've seen him play 7-on-7, and I mean he's an aggressive defensive back and good cover corner. And I think an important one, just in terms of who he's connected to down there. And I think it's probably fair to have a conversation about the work Nebraska's done in Florida, because we had that conversation back. What was the 20 class? They had a lot of commits from that state, not many guys who stuck around. And I think what you're seeing with the way that they've recruited the state this time around, Nebraska has, the difference being you're having guys that are coming up here and having success and playing early in their careers. And I think that makes a huge difference in terms of retention. I think it makes a huge difference in terms of, what you're able to do as a recruiter in subsequent classes, where, Jakori Barney is a name down there. Jakori Barney had a hell of a freshman year. And, I think that just pointing to him as a player that has, gone to Nebraska and had success, I think there's a lot of power in that. And, McGahee's the same way. I think Cortez Mills can be that kind of guy this year as well, in terms of just another name that's known in Florida. And especially among skill players. So that was a really nice pivot. And I think you've got to give Nebraska credit for getting in there and really recruiting with their elbows out, because Ohio State was pushing for him late. Oklahoma was there the entire time. And, that was a recruitment that Nebraska went in there and won. And they're going to have to continue to win until, he signs. But that was a really good get for Nebraska. And especially, with losing Bronow, that was a pretty good way to pivot, I think.
Bruntz, sorry, I got distracted by Jakori Barney. Do you think we give enough credit to the year that he had? Because, like, the way we talk about the wide receiver room, like, it's all about, and I get it, it's all about Key, it's all about Hunter. We even bring up Cortez Mills every once in a while. But, like, Jakori Barney kind of quietly had 55 catches last year. He had almost 600 yards from scrimmage when you include the rushing yards. Like, he had as you said, he had a really, really good freshman year. Mm-hmm. And it seems like we've sort of forgotten he exists.
Yeah, you've glossed over 55 catches, which is kind of wild.
Which is a huge, that's a big number for anybody.
Yeah. Back to what we were talking about. Would you guys believe that the Mariners are still 5.5 back of the Astros?
Yes.
With the way they've been playing?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Because the Astros do practice witchcraft.
No, they cheat. They cheat. Just say they cheat.
I'm dead serious. Ask anybody that's not an Astros fan.
I know.
The top four in their rotation.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. It's just short of them thinking that Correa still plays there.
Yeah, exactly.
He does.
Oh man, Bregman, man, he's pretty sweet. What?
Just wish he'd get off the IL for the Red Sox.
What? Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to go there.
It's fine.
No, but Jakori Barney, yeah, I mean that it's hard to imagine in the past that we would have glossed over that kind of production. I mean, is he even second right now in conversations about wide receivers at Nebraska?
Third at best.
Yeah.
Third at best.
So, the thing for him is Nebraska needs to find a way to get him downfield. And I know that that's not necessarily like, he can do a lot of things with the way Nebraska used him last year. But if you start adding the downfield stuff to what he's able to do, I mean, that's that's pretty good. That's a good look. And so, yeah, I mean, you guys are probably, you can imagine the kind of attention he got when it was portal season and schools trying to see what his interest might be. So, yeah, I mean, he's a big piece of that offense that I think you're absolutely right, Ravi, that, we're probably not talking about him enough in terms of what he can do for that offense. And I think I like to think that with a full off season to game plan, that Dana Holgorsen is going to find a way to use a player like that who has very similar skill sets to players he's had success with in the past.
I was just going to say, doesn't he seem like a perfect Dana Holgorsen wide receiver?
Yes. Yeah.
Like if I could build one in a lab, it would almost look like Jakori Barney. If I was like, hey, you get a you get a Dana Holgorsen offense and Dylan Raiola as your quarterback, I would say, yep, it's going to look a lot like Jakori Barney.
I mean, how soon did the Tank Dell stuff start when Dana came?
I mean, I'm going back all the way to like Steve Slayton.
Right. But
you're right. Tank Dell came up
like first press conference. It was like, hey, this guy reminds me a lot of Tank Dell. This guy. He told me. Jakori even said it too. He's like, yeah, he said I remind him a lot of Tank Dell. And I mean, there's a very distinct type that Dana's had success with, and I think Jakori really fits the bill there.
Kind of along the lines of Barney, even though I don't think it's going to be him. But if Nebraska was going to be better than average in one of the return areas, would you pick punt return or kickoff return?
I think kickoff, and I think that's just I think that's more the nature of college football now. Like, I think it's Mike Riley said this back in like 2015, 2016, whenever it was, about how he at the time said, college football is changing. It's harder to be a good team returning punts. Nebraska's going to return punts. Like that's going to be something that's going to be baked into what they're going to do now. I mean, Mike Eckler's done that everywhere and really emphasized that. But I think you'll see some better returns with the kickoff stuff. I think just decision making will probably be coached a little bit better. Like that's just knowing when to bring it out, when not to. I mean, the kickoff stuff also to me is like that's where you can flip the field position stuff in a hurry. If you're starting from a couple times, you bring it out past your own 30 versus some of the stuff that Nebraska's done in the past that's just frankly leaves you scratching your head. I think that's where you can have an impact, and I think they've got enough athletes and guys that have done it in the past to where you'll be able to see it, I think, a little bit more on kickoffs. But I mean, that's a good question because the punting piece and the punt return piece, they're going to try to make big plays there. But I just think it's kickoffs a little bit more ready-made, just with the way college football is now.
It's just harder to keep the ball in the field of play punting than it is kickoff returns, right? If all else fails and guys know they can fair catch it, it's like, well, this has not been that easy for Nebraska. But I shouldn't even say
when they batted it back out of the end zone, when the cover guy knocked it back into play, catching it at the 1 and stepping out of bounds. I mean, it's not a high bar.
Yeah, I guess I would still say punt returns.
Yeah.
What about?
I mean,
because
you get a couple big returns, it's going to look a heck of a lot different than it's looked in the past, numbers wise, especially.
They happen more, and you probably are going to. It's a lot harder just to punt the ball out of bounds, like it is to kick the ball through the end zone or to pooch it high in the air. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I do think with kickoffs, it's easier to avoid dynamic returners. You just kick it out of the end zone.
Yeah, we just let guys from Wisconsin. Never mind. It's very traumatic.
Bruntz, I want to return to a recruiting question here. There was obviously Claude Puma was on campus and had the cool photos with Dayton Raiola and all that kind of stuff. Are you hearing anything on the offensive tackle out of Chicago?
Yeah, I've heard it's gone back and forth a lot. It's kind of interesting talking to folks in our network that cover kind of his group of finalists, and hey, what do you hear and what's the confidence level? It changes day to day with him, and I think that there's legitimate question in his mind of kind of finding the right place versus everything else that kind of comes along with it, with the NIL piece and feeling at home and that kind of thing. So, I have not heard at this point that one team is definitively in the lead right now. A couple days ago, it felt like Auburn was kind of in the pole position for him, and then Florida kind of the same way. I think Nebraska's in a good spot as well, with being a little bit of a different look than maybe those other schools. So, it's one of those recruitments kind of similar to Odom's, where it's a little bit more old school, a little bit more back and forth, in kind of making that decision. But definitely a player that, very new to football, that a lot of clay to mold there, for an offensive line coach. So we'll continue to report on that one. And it feels like one of those that probably has a few more twists and turns left before decision day.
All right, so July 1 is kind of a date of significance coming up with whatever Larry Miles does. Do you think Larry Miles and what he does get the sense it has anything to do with or for Nayland Scott?
No, I think Nebraska's in a good spot for both. I don't think it's I don't get the sense it's one or the other. I think especially with Miles, you got to kind of consider how that recruitment came together. It's been quick. It's been a quick courtship. He's on his way back to Florida, basically diverts to Lincoln for an unofficial visit, comes back a few weeks later. I think, from talking to our folks in Florida, they think he's a, kind of underrated prospect for what he is as a wide receiver. So, I think it feels to me like you're probably looking at two wide receivers in the class. It's, Scott's situation is a little bit unique because of Arizona State playing hardball with official visits once you're committed and things like that. But no, I think, those could be your two in the class very easily. And, I think those would be two really nice gets. It feels like what, Nebraska is kind of trending towards, at least with a small sample size, is you get a couple high school wide receivers, you feel good about developing guys that could, maybe help you early in their careers if you need them to. And then you come over the top with portal guys that are a little bit more veteran on the outside. I'll be curious to see if they have more success with that this year, with Key and Hunter than what they did a year ago. But, I think that's a decent approach in terms of your wide receiver recruiting and kind of keeping that ball rolling with, not having to kind of reset the deck every year.
So far, it seems like everything Trey Taylor does in terms of peer recruitment is intentional. It's not by accident. But he does catch a break with Wagner being just down the street, the 2027 tackle. I get it. It's 2027. But what kind of momentum or could you foresee, or is it independent of the season Nebraska has this year, with making some of the inroads being in so early with 2027s and 2028s?
Well, it helps. It's kind of the sweetener on the sales pitch. And I don't recall the quarterback has to be your Pied Piper for the class. And I don't recall a quarterback that's been this all in on the peer recruiting stuff than Trey Taylor.
Pretty public.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Kalen, but he didn't have the reach.
No. And the guy who had the reach, but I don't know that he always kind of felt a little bit reluctant to me, was Jebbia. He's the guy that I kind of get to as had the connections with top end talent, was kind of in the right area. But I think with Taylor, you've got to remember, he's in Illinois, but there's a national 7-on-7 championship this week, and Trey Taylor's playing with a team that's just absolutely loaded with guys from Florida and Georgia. Like, that's the kind of reach he has. I mean, he stepped in on that 7-on-7 camp at Nebraska and was playing with, the top team in South Florida. And
he's like Spencer for hire.
Basically. But I mean, I think what I heard from recruits too was I think they respect the hell out of the way he just kind of goes about his business. Like, he's very focused when he plays. He's very personable too. Like, he's not kind of over the top and kind of, weird with the peer recruiting. I mean, he's a really relatable kid. He's mature. And, I think that's huge when you start talking the 27 and 28 class, and it only helps getting guys to campus and things like that if you're able to back it up with results on the field. So it's a really nice mix right now, and Nebraska, the 2025 version just needs to help him out a little bit.
That's our guy, Michael Bruntz, Husker247. Bruntz, appreciate the time as always. Good stuff, and see if we can come up with some more random baseball stuff for you next week.
McCutcheon wasn't controversial enough. I kind of wanted some validating, and that was a little too easy for you. I don't feel like I stretched your talents.
No, but I learned something. It did. I was not aware that it had gotten as bad as it did. So thank you for enlightening me this morning.